Hi everyone, today we are going to talk about absolute value equations and how we can solve for absolute value equations and what an absolute value even is and what it means. So to start off, let's define what an absolute value is. The absolute value is the distance from zero. All right, so let's make sure we have this in our notes, please. So go ahead and pause this video and write down the definition of an absolute value. All right, once you guys have that in your notes, let's talk about what that even means when I say the distance from zero. So if we take a look at a number line, we'll put 0 right here. If I ask, what is the distance from this coordinate point at, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4 to 0, you would say that distance is 4. Now let's say I also drew a point at -4 and asked what is the distance between -4 and 0, and that distance is also 4. So something to note, and I want you guys to make sure you have this in your notes, is that distance is always positive. So distance is always, always, always positive. So that means if we take the absolute value of a number, let's say I ask you, what is the absolute value of +3? I am really asking you, what is the distance from 0 to 3? So we'll go ahead and write that down. So I'm really saying, what is the distance from, let's make sure I spell that correctly, from 0 to 3. All right. So a lot of you guys right now, I know in your heads are telling me, well, the distance from 0 to 3 is just 3. And that's fantastic. So the absolute value of 3 equals 3. So let's go ahead and look at another example. If I ask to find what is the absolute value of -5, I am asking how far away from 0 on a number line is -5. And -5 is 5 units away from 0 on the number line. So we can do these problems all day long. We're just really asking how far away is something. But when we get into the equation piece of it, what we're going to start looking at is problems that look like the absolute value of x equals 2. So I'm asking you, what could x be? What are the different numbers that are a distance of 2 away from 0 on a number line? So if we take a look at a number line again, and I'm looking at 0, I can either go 2 in the positive direction, and so one of my answers could be 2, or I could go 2 in the negative direction, and so one of my answers could be -2. So in this case, x could equal both 2 and x could equal -2. So let's go ahead and look at one more example, very similar to that one. So we have absolute value of x equals, let's go with 7. So I want to know what values are 7 units away from 0 on a number line. And we have x could equal +7, because +7 is 7 units away from 0. And x could also equal -7, since -7 is 7 units away from 0 on the number line. So we can solve some pretty basic absolute value equations, very similar to this one. But let's go ahead and get the joke of the video down. So make a spot for your notes to write the answer to this joke. Whatever you think it is, we'll come double check it when you're all done with your notes to see if you were right. Today's joke is, what kind of tree fits in your hand? So what kind of tree fits in your hand? If you think you know the answer, write it down on your sheet of paper. We will see if you are correct after we're done. But let's go ahead and look at some more complex problems here. So let's do the absolute value of x plus 3 equals 8. Okay, so with this one, 8 is our distance from 0. So we need to be 8 units away from 0. And I know that positive 8 is 8 units away from 0 and negative 8 is 8 units away from 0. So I actually have to split up my equation into two separate problems, because my x plus 3 value could equal positive 8. It could be that positive 8 distance away from 0, or my x plus 3 value could equal negative 8. Because if I take the absolute value of negative 8, I will get positive 8. So I now need to solve two separate equations. So in order to solve this, I need to get the x value by itself. So I will subtract 3 from both sides. This is going to leave me with x equals a positive 5. And on the second problem, if I subtract 3 from both sides, I will get x equals negative 11. So those are my two answers to this problem, is x equals 5 and x equals negative 11. But it is really, really important that we do separate out the two different answers, because we have the positive and the negative side of the number line. We are going to get two different solutions for these absolute value problems. Let's go ahead and look at one final example before I set you guys off onto your practice problems. So let's take a look at the absolute value of 2x, and we will set that equal to 10. So we're trying to figure out what numbers could be 10 units away from 0, and we have the option of a positive 10 and a negative 10. So once again, we are going to break up our equation into two separate parts. So we have 2x could equal the positive 10, but we also have 2x could equal the negative 10. It is really, really important to note that whatever is inside of the parentheses does not change. So we keep that the same. And then we can go ahead and solve both of our equations. So we can divide both sides by 2 to get x equals 5 for our first answer. And over here, when we divide by 2, we get x equals negative 5 as our second answer. So once again, we are only changing this second value to represent our positive and technically our negative distance, which distance can't be negative, so we always refer to it as positive. But we do not change whatever is inside of the absolute value sign. And we solve, and we should get two solutions in this case. There will be some times where we get one solution or no solution, but we will talk about that in later videos.